Well, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP, will be the world's largest free trade area, taking in countries like the United States, Japan and 10 others, including Australia and Singapore. Together they account for 40% of the global economy. The agreement is expected to make a huge difference to trade between its members. One estimate says it'll be worth $295 billion within a decade. Well, the signing of the deal was announced by US Trade Representative Michael Froman a little earlier.
After more than 5 years of intensive negotiations, we have come to an agreement that will support jobs, drive sustainable growth, foster inclusive development, and promote innovation across the Asia-Pacific region. Most importantly, the agreement achieves the goal we set forth of an ambitious, comprehensive, high-standard and balanced agreement that will benefit our nation's citizens.
Michael Froman. Well, let's get more from BBC's Samira Hussain, who joins us from New York. President Obama will be delighted about this. What about Beijing, though?
Well, right. And so one of the reasons why there was so much interest in creating this Trans-Pacific Partnership was China. Now, China is not part of the TPP, but what President Obama was hoping for is to have a trade agreement that could kind of push against the economic heft that people are seeing from China. At least that was what they were saying at the very beginning. Throughout the years of negotiations, that stance has sort of softened somewhat, and some are even saying that perhaps we could even see China coming into the deal at some point.
Oh, right, that's interesting. What about Shinzo Abe? Because it's good news for him, presumably, and this will third arrow of his economic reform programme.
This is very good news for him. And one of the big sticking points was, of course, autos. Now, because Canada and Mexico were already under the North American Free Trade Agreement, which has been in place for about 20 years, it had specific standards in terms of how much each car needed to have in terms of parts from North America. That has been negotiated, and Japan is now going to be able to participate in that in terms of lesser tariffs on their overall cars, and also being able to contribute parts for cars, for North American made cars.
So just generally, Samira, what does this mean for, for farmers, for dairy producers, cheese makers, to intellectual rights issues? I mean, just give us a broad brush synopsis of it, really.
Well, one of the big problems and one of the big criticisms of this deal has been that a lot of the negotiations have been happening behind closed doors. And so the actual nuts and bolts of the deal won't really be released for another month. That's when the 30-page manual, so to speak, will be released. But many critics are saying that this deal favors corporations over others. And there have been so many sticking points, from anything like dairy, sugar, automobile parts, and of course medicines, that it's almost hard to keep track of where everybody lands in terms of their specific interest. So many are going to be waiting to get more details when the actual deal is released.
Yeah, because I mean there have been so many complaints, haven't there? I mean, every country blaming each other for sort of vested interests. The Rust Belt, for example, in the United States and elsewhere. Do you think these things really have been ironed out, or actually, when it comes to the detail, it might not be quite as sparkling as people think it is at the moment?
Well, there's no doubt that there was a lot of interest and a lot of push to try and sign a deal. I mean, back in July, the same ministers had met in Hawaii, and there was a lot of hope that a deal was going to be signed then. A deal did not come through. Fast forward to now, these trade negotiations were only supposed to last 2 days. They continued these negotiations throughout the weekend, and here we are on Monday morning here in the United States, and they're announcing this deal. So there was certainly a lot of interest for each individual country to try and get this deal signed. Not, of course, President Obama at the top of that list.